Experts have no idea who's responsible for this type of megalithic construction, but they do know who's responsible for some of these. And when they do know who is responsible, the carvings on the stones still remain a mystery. Because the mystery surrounding these other megalithic sites is the experts don't understand the carvings. How can these experts understand a culture, but not what this culture carved? Disregard. Fortunate for us, a new culture has been discovered that might answer some of these questions. This new culture that has been identified can be found on every continent and has been connected to the megalithic builders. Their fabrication methods are advanced and unknown. The abundance of artifacts may be evidence of a non-labor intensive process. A wide range of materials were used, to include modern ones like aluminum. The artifacts adhere to a strict geometric standard. This standard not only applies to art and sculpture, but also applies to structures in terraformed areas. This consistent geometry with varying size is best described as a fractal. A small amount of evidence suggests they practice spiritual unaliving, which makes sense because their art style is very strange and dark. It relies heavily on light and perspective to be seen as intended. Effigies and general representations were used more often than the direct likeness of the subject matter. Worthy of note, an artifact matching a carved face on a megalith was eventually connected to this modern photo, shedding light on potential subjects of worship. There's also evidence that this culture was involved in some type of cataclysm. But finally, it was discovered that the materials used in all of these megalithic sites happened to be from that ancient culture. And that information enables all these megalithic sites to be connected. It also immediately answers why the experts have no idea about the carvings. It's because those carvings never belonged to the cultures to begin with. Okay, let's explore who. Surprise, we have no academic examples of a world culture. We do have recognized examples of feathered serpent worship in the Americas, but the geometry and art doesn't check out. What we do seem to have plenty of evidence of is a cataclysm. And for the sake of argument, let's just go ahead and say flood. A real popular source for the subject is Plato. Some creators are pointing out how well the Rishat structure's features match that in Plato's description. They've also pointed out how well the date range lines up with the Younger Dryas event. This is all compelling stuff, but they always seem to leave out this one important detail about the story. They forgot to mention that there are these individuals that called themselves gods. They divided up and ruled the whole world, making temples and sacrifices. Where's the proof? Because you can't have one without the other. When comparing bullet points, it seems that our newly discovered culture is a good candidate. There's also this quote which I believe is relevant. In summary, she states that there was this once great cult that worshipped the sun and the dragon, and those cults are best preserved in the Buddhist and Chinese countries. Well, that checks out because one of the statue fragments discovered seemed to look Chinese. When you quickly analyze other historic mysteries, you kind of see how they could be explained by this. There were so many that were explained well that it quickly became too many to list. I found it makes more sense to discuss what we should find.